Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation, defending the dollar, why it is money, and why it may not fail. Let's explore. Now, if that title has triggered you in a certain way, well, I can understand why that would be the case, because those three little headlines there, defending the dollar, why it is money, and why it may not fail, really go against what most of us believe or have been taught from within this community. And I'm going to reference a very well done series by Mike Maloney called The Hidden Secrets of Money. And I'm also going to reference a prior video that I did on this topic called Is Cash Trash and Is the Dollar Money? I'm going to link to that video at the end screen of this video because I think it really explains where I'm coming from and helps to give you a little bit of perspective on why I feel that the dollar is money and why I'm defending it to this very day. And it's just a matter of critical thinking. I believe that anything you hear, you should question and kind of take a look at the nuance. And I'm going to reference directly the Hidden Secrets of Money episode. And again, it's very well done. I believe it's very well thought out. And in the end, the message of that series is that gold and silver are the ultimate form of money. And really, to that, we can't agree. All of us agree on that because that is why we accumulate gold and silver, because they are essentially a savings account of stable, sound money that has survived for millennia. But let's take a look here from the Hidden Secrets of Money. We have the difference between currency and money. And Mr. Maloney makes the argument that these notes here, which are made of cotton and linen, and most people call it paper money, it's a debt instrument that is known as currency, which is a medium of exchange, a unit of account. It's portable. It's durable. Yes, these are actually fairly strong. It's divisible. It's fungible, which means it's interchangeable. And each dollar can be exchanged for another dollar because even though they may come from different printed based off of different Federal Reserve banks, they are certainly interchangeable all around the country. In fact, over 65 nations in the world transact in the dollar. Over 60% of the transactions around the world are utilizing these dollars. But the one thing that's missing from currency that money has is a store of value. And I make reference to this in that video, Is Cash Trash and Is the Dollar Money? Basically say that yes, these notes, these cotton and linen notes, due to the nature that they are designated as currency by the federal government, which is known as fiat designation, they are in fact a store of value. Now, there's no question that that store of value is leaking, as Mike Maloney puts in his Hidden Secrets of Money episode 1, because each year, by the design of the Federal Reserve policies, the dollar loses between 2 or a little over 2% each year by some measures, usually by the Consumer Price Index. But it is still a store of value. And when you understand that store of value and you compensate for it, usually with cost of living increases as far as your wages are concerned, or just in general, when you get a cost of living increase or a raise from your employer, sometimes it's more than the 2%. And so therefore, you just spend more of these to get whatever you want. And one measure of that would be gasoline. Now, this silver quarter at one time could buy a gallon of gasoline, but the cost of the silver contained in this quarter now could probably get you about a gallon of gasoline. And that is why we consider precious metals to be that store of value. But let's talk about currencies for a moment, because there are currencies from the United States of America that have shifted and evolved over the years, but they've still been dollars. The dollar's been around a long time. It was from early on, after the Mint Act created the coins that we have. Dollars have been in existence, and then we have here a $2 bill that doesn't have a Federal Reserve status or designation on it, even though it was printed in the age of the Federal Reserve System in 1963. It's called a United States note, although this note here is not backed by anything other than the faith and full credit of the government, not necessarily the Federal Reserve Bank in this case. Although here we have a paper note that certainly holds a little bit more weight in what it says on the note. It's a certificate here, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different types of money that are out there. And I think this is going to help us have a better idea about these different types of money. But let's talk a little bit about how money is that medium of exchange. That's the most important function of money, is that medium of exchange for products and for goods and services. And really, it doesn't matter from what country it comes from. Currency, this big pile that you see before you from all these different nations around the world, these things has acted at one point or another during their time as medium of exchange and recognized medium of exchange. And to me, that is quite telling. Here's a note from Venezuela, and as you can tell right now, these bolivars certainly have changed from the time when this note was printed in 1989 as far as their value, for sure. But they are that medium of exchange. And then they're a unit of account. It's a common standard for measuring the value of goods and services. It's consistent and allows you to easily compare the worth of a dollar for one product as opposed to another. And it's also this store of value that we talked about here. But there are some different types of money. The most recognized type of money is fiat money. It is the most liquid. And that's very important to understand when you compare it, especially to precious metals. It is the most liquid. Fiat money is the first type, and that is banknotes, paper money, and coins. Cash, in other words. Fiat money is money whose value is not based on its inherent or intrinsic value, but it is based off of fiat. It is an authoritative body that gives it its value. And that is something we all recognize, whether we admit it or not. Every single person watching this video, especially if you live in the United States, but no matter what country or union you live in, such as the European Union, you have faith in fiat. There's just no question about it. Because if you didn't, well, you would probably be living in a hole or as a hermit somewhere and surviving off the land. And likely you would not be watching this video if you didn't have internet access, which you had to pay for with these fiat notes. The government declares it as legal tender, and it must be accepted as a form of payment everywhere in the nation from which it is issued. Due to not having an intrinsic value, a partially destroyed bill can be replaced by the Federal Reserve Bank. And that is an important designation as well. So if this thing was ripped, you can take it to a bank and you can get a new bill to exchange for it. And that is something that is happening. In fact, right now the Federal Reserve Bank is not only doing that, they're creating new dollar bills. They're diluting the money supply, which is derived of these currencies that we utilize for transactions. So fiat money consists of currency, but it is still money. Now, the next form is what is known as Commodity money. That's right. Commodity money. There they are. Gold and silver are commodity money. And it is quite something else to witness here. A form of money that we all enjoy here. Most that watch these videos, we enjoy the fiat or the commodity money. Precious metals. Unlike fiat currency, the value of commodity money is intrinsic. Its value comes from the commodity it is made from. In other words, the gold and silver that are contained in these coins is the store of value in these pieces here. If the money is destroyed, it can't be replaced in the form that it was, but really the metals themselves are never really destroyed. They just transform into something else, another shape, but they're still gold and silver. It's really the earliest form of money that was created, gold and silver. These commodities are used as a medium of exchange and gain their value from the scarcity of the items. In other words, you can't print gold and silver. Silver is relatively rare compared to many of the base metals that you find out there, such as copper, which, by the way, I can make an argument that copper is money as well, nickel, aluminum, steel, iron, and many of those metals are very common. Silver is rarer than those metals. Gold is much more rare than those metals and more rare than silver by an amount of at least 8 to 1. The commodities that are used as a medium of exchange, they gain their value from their scarcity, but they also have the use of their money. If this money is like using the barter system where goods and services are exchanged for the like. They contain all the properties of money, especially the way that they can be divisible and fungible and transmittable, and just like you can with cash, with currency. Unlike the barter system, using commodity money as a unit of account that allows you to compare the worth of goods and services. But the problem with commodity money is it's not as liquid. These pieces are very much not used these days for buying groceries or goods and services normally. That's what currency is used for. That's what the dollar is used for. Fiat money is utilized for that. And then there's a third type of money called representative money, which is a very interesting form of money that helps us to kind of understand what's going on in many ways with the gold and silver markets. Representative money, like fiat money, has no intrinsic value of its own. It is backed by a commodity. As a commodity-backed money, it could be exchanged for precious metals like gold or silver held within a bank vault. And so in other words, it was easier to carry a certificate rather than a full chest of gold. But that's where this comes into play. This is an example of that type of money. This is representative money, a silver certificate. This has been deposited in the Treasury of the United States of America, and it's $1 silver dollar payable to the bearer on demand for 0.77 ounces of silver. In this case, usually that is $1 silver dollar, as you can see here. Exchanging one for a form for another, silver. And one can take that to the next logical conclusion, whereas silver and gold are now being traded in what's called exchange-traded products. In other words, you buy digital receipts of silver and gold held in a bank or held in an institution. And much of that people have questions about because there's a lot more of those ETFs than there are the silver and gold to back them. Now, so money is a much more inclusive thing than most people thought, especially after watching Hidden Secrets of Money. because we've now gone through three types of money, and they all have value, a store of value. The next type is fiduciary money. That would be checks and bank drafts, and then basically it's from that Latin word, which means trust, fiducia. Fiduciary money works on the promise and trust that it will be exchanged for fiat or commodity money by the issuer or bank. So they're not required to take it as a form of payment because it is not a government-ordered legal tender. So when you write a check out, or even an ACH transaction, if you were to buy something online, that is a representative by fiduciary money. It's a faith on what the bank holds in your account. If you were to go to take all of your money out of your savings, likely you probably won't there's not enough cash there to do it, or it would be very difficult. People have talked about that in that regard because there is this trust with this fiduciary money. The last is sort of related, and that is commercial bank money. And this is kind of what ties closer into what the Federal Reserve and big banks are doing. It's essentially your funds in a checking account. It's a claim against the bank for the purchase of goods and services, and it's a debt-created currency by the bank. They create more money through a process called fractional reserve banking, and this only a certain percentage of money in the bank is held within it. The other percent is given to others in the form of loans. In doing so, the bank makes back more money from the interest and fees charged to customers. And so it's like, it's loaning out money you deposit to give to others debt and create more money from the interest paid on it. And that's fractional reserve banking. And, and with precious metals, people say there's a lot of that going on too. Fractional reserve silver, fractional reserve gold, much kind of like doing the same type of thing. It can be very complicated with silver and gold futures, and especially these options trading and all different kind of ways to be able to utilize gold and silver in that regard. So because of that very nature, because of some of these actions that we're finding with money that are these 5 different types, is not just related, it can be married over into the precious metals as well. So why is it likely that the dollar may not fail? I would say because of what's been going on, especially within the last year, and really even more so the last several months, and that is a new system, a reset. And why is the reset going to save the dollar? Well, because of how they can hide it with technology. But let's first talk about the dollar. People say, well, Sal, how can you say that it's likely not going to fail? Is it too big to fail? Like they said some of these big corporations and banks that they bailed out in the financial crisis? To a degree, yes. To a degree, it is too big to fail because the dollar is the world's reserve currency. And I would make the argument that the dollar is likely not to fail because of American exceptionalism. And I'll explain that in a moment here. But it has immense power. Its value is determined by the strength of the American economy. And although the American system, which is essentially a free market capitalist system, is under grave threat these days. But it has weathered a lot, and it has weathered a lot since Woodrow Wilson's administration. And I believe that was the beginning and foundation of what is known as more demand-side economics, what's known as Keynesian philosophy, in terms of this progressive movement that has made its way since really the late teens and early 20s and into the Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration, and for his 4 terms in office, where they really made the government big and had a lot of central planning, and it put a grave threat on the system. of the free market and essentially laissez-faire type of system that we have and had in this country largely up until that point. And we still have it to a degree now, but it is eroding away. And we are, in a sense, living off of and still benefiting from the times when we were essentially more of a free economy. And under that system, I believe that Americans, because of that systems, have been able to adapt to some of these far overreaching regulations, overburdened taxation and the like. And because of the nature of what the foundation of this nation was built, we still are under an age of American exceptionalism. And it's not so much that I as an American or you as an American are any better than anybody around the world that are under different nations. It's because of the foundation of our country, which is the Constitution and the idea of limited government. In other words, the Constitution restrains, it's meant to restrain government and set free the entrepreneurial spirit of what made this country great in the first place. And we are still benefiting from those times, and that is why we become the most powerful economy. But that is under threat because China's economy is a close second right now. And at least by some measures, they are right behind us. But because we have the world's reserve currency, it's held in large quantities in central banks around the globe. And that is why it is likely to not fail, at least anytime soon, before there is a reset. That's right. I believe there's going to be a global reset of the dollar, and it's already been talked about at the IMF and also within the Federal Reserve. And it can take its form in several different ways. It could be tied to more of a global system around the IMF with some sort of a ledger-based system, a sort of a blockchain, kind of like what cryptocurrencies use, or a new digital U.S. dollar, what's been talked about as Fedcoin, where transactions are still based around this system where everything is tracked, every purchases are tracked through a digital currency. It's a reshuffling of everything, and tying it in with this new dollar will give people confidence in this new system. It'll be, quote, modernized and the like, and that will essentially save the dollar, so to speak, and give people a new confidence. Now, for you and I, we would find less confidence in that kind of system, and I think it would drive us to want to be able to accumulate more gold and silver because they're not tracked. They are still money and have been money for thousands of years. But it is a system that I believe will at least give the impression that the dollar has been strengthened through this reset. But I think they're going to do it because of how much the dollar is utilized around the world. And again, more than 65 countries peg their currencies already to the U.S. dollar after the Bretton Woods Agreement, which essentially was the first nail in the coffin to the gold standard. And so it's just a matter of just re-establishing these fiat standards. And with the U.S. being the best of the worst out there with these currencies, with quantitative easing, we're doing it, but so is every other nation on Earth. And until they lose faith in the dollar, the dollar will stand strong against these other pegged against these other currencies at the IMF and around the world. And so that's why I believe it's probably unlikely that the dollar is going to fail anytime soon before it's reset. Now, after it is reset, whatever form that may take, who knows what's going to happen? It's not like that it's going to necessarily be rock solid, or it's going to protect against whatever may come after that point, because it'll be brand new. but it will give the illusion of this confidence to it. So all of that being said, I believe that there will be a transition to this new dollar, and it will at least give some people a sense of confidence because it's something new, and they feel like that the smart people at the IMF or the Federal Reserve have thought about this, and it's something new, but it's not going to be backed by gold or silver. At least from what I understand, it's not going to be backed by that. So that presents a problem because that means there's nothing really constraining the dollar, and it will still leak because then they can just digitize them ad nauseum at will and probably do it in a way that makes it more difficult and more convoluted to kind of track. But sooner or later, it's going to catch up to them because the one thing that I agree with in closing with the hidden secrets of money is that all fiat currencies end up failing. They all end up basically running out of steam, leaking to the point where they are no longer present a store of value, such as you see here with these notes. These are $100 trillion notes from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. And this is the largest inflationary note in world history. And these notes were replaced after being printed in November of 2008 with the new Zimbabwean dollar reset in January of 2009. And I believe we're going to see something like that before these inflationary notes come into pass from the dollar. But the United States, it being the largest economy in the world because of American exceptionalism, is likely not to have one of these hyperinflationary scenarios such as we saw in Zimbabwe, and right now we are seeing in Venezuela, and also some other countries like Lebanon and other places are having currency problems, trying to print their way out of money troubles. Well, in the United States, it looks like it's working to a degree, but it will work until it doesn't work anymore, until the world starts to lose faith. And I believe that if there is a more of a global standard for the dollar, in other words, tied to the IMF or what have you, or even something that a new Fed coin that is created, it will essentially provide an illusion, at least for a while. Now, what happens after that? Who knows? And we really can't predict the future, but what we do know is that the dollar is something that we use every single day as Americans, and 65 other nations around the world use it by proxy. In fact, many of these nations also use it within transactions with each other and the like. Ultimately, the end is that gold and silver are the ultimate form of stable, sound money, and will continue to be for millennia, for generations to come. They will outlast all of the fiat currencies out there. But until then, we have the dollar, we utilize it, we buy our gold and silver with it. There are times where our gold and silver are worth less than they were before based off of the dollar amount. That's a spot price designation. There are times when they are worth more because of premiums tied to them above and beyond spot price and what you can sell them for. It's a complex market to a degree, and understanding. In the end, gold and silver, that commodity money, is the most sound form of money out there. But the dollar, I believe it's money, and I believe it's likely not to fail. But I'm also not ruling it out at any given point in time, especially after this reset occurs. So there you have it. So there is my somewhat defense of the dollar. But again, if I had my way, I would love to see gold and silver kind of in circulation again. I think that would be so cool. Or at least a dollar note that is tied to gold and silver, utilizing some sort of technology that makes sure that checks and balances it out, so that we know that we have the ultimate store of value with the dollar that can't be inflated. It's got to be constrained to gold and silver. So let me know your thoughts. This has been a nuanced discussion of the dollar, and why I believe it's money and why it may not fail. I want you to check out the video at the end screen. Is a link to it. Again, it's called "Is Cash Trash? Is the Dollar Money?" That I think explains it in way better than this video. But also, this video gives a more in-depth discussion, I believe, on the dollar and why it's money. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to continue to accumulate gold and silver and to accumulate these fiat currencies. A multitude of gratitude, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.